Okay. And we also have Chitra on with us, who's a health and nutrition coach. So very excited for everyone to be on the call tonight. This is something kind of new we are doing because we can't meet in person. So we are doing Zoom. And tonight is all about the lifestyle. So Megan is here to talk about how much of our income gets to go for fun stuff versus taxes. Because we all retire with a partner who is Uncle Sam, and he has his hands in our money, and we need to understand how much of our income gets paid to taxes, how much is tax free, what are the implications of certain things. Sorry, my daughter's screaming bloody murder. And we have Amanda on, who is interior decorator. She's going to talk about when we do find our forever home, our retirement home, how do we make it feel like home? And I'll give you an example. I have a couple, they just moved from New Jersey to Florida, and they got to their development. A week later, the shutdown happened. So they didn't get to meet anybody. They didn't get to go to the clubhouse or anything. And the other piece is all their belongings are still in New Jersey and they're stuck. And you don't think so much, like they did get new furniture, but their pictures, their photo albums, right? Their memories, all that stuff tying them in. So they said it feels very stark and stale and doesn't feel like home at all right now. And then to be in a new place where they don't know anybody. So obviously this is a very different type of situation. Hopefully you don't have this again. But still, you don't think about that stuff. But when you're going into a new place, it feels very uncomfortable for a while until it feels like home. So unfortunately for them, it might be like that for a little longer. So that's why Amanda's here. And Chitra, because we want to be as healthy as possible coming into retirement. That's so important for all of our women so they can enjoy retirement so much more and be active. And I'll give you an example. One small thing can make a huge difference, right?
Absolutely.
I read if you walk 1 mile a day, it reduces your chances of Alzheimer's by 48%.
Oh, wow.
That's
I
amazing.
have to use that.
That is huge, isn't that?
Yeah.
You can commit to walking 1 mile a day.
Yeah.
And to reduce it by 48%, not just, 10%, 20%, 48%.
That's almost half.
Yeah.
That's an incentive, because I think that's one of our biggest fears is becoming a burden mentally, physically, mentally, financially. But the mental one is definitely a big fear for a lot of women and stuff. So I'm going to share my screen so everyone can see the worksheet for tonight, because Megan's going to be talking on the taxes, the tax brackets and stuff. So can everybody see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Managing tax brackets?
Yep.
All right, cool. So Megan is a CPA. She works for the MBA. What is the update on the games right now, Megan? It's a quick side note.
Still to be determined.
Okay.
A million possibilities still.
I'm sure. It's planning and replanning.
Yes. Yeah.
And stuff. All right.
Okay,
So
great.
do you want to go into and explain how tax brackets work? Because
Sure.
when we look at income and retirement, one of my big goals is to help women understand what's going to get taxed, what isn't going to get taxed, right? The boring stuff. But it's really also because there's so many more strategies when we're conscious of these different brackets.
Yeah.
And it's not that, let's say you earn $300,000. That doesn't mean everything's taxed at 32%.
Correct.
So you want to take us through that, Megan?
Sure. Let me talk you through it. That's something I definitely think is important. For everyone who I haven't met, my name's Megan. I work with the club regularly. I work with Jessica and a bunch of her clients on taxes, working on the individuals as well as some small businesses and things like that as well. So retirement offers you the opportunity to kind of control your income in different years, unlike a lot of your working life where you don't get to choose your salary each year. Rather, you get paid a certain salary, and it's harder to be flexible with your dollars. But in retirement, you have a lot of flexibility, and one of the benefits there is it's a good way for you to save tax money. There's a strategy to planning out how much money you take when, so that you don't hit certain thresholds and you pay lower taxes as much as possible. So the one thing I wanted to start off on, I always say this when I talk with the people in Justice Club, is when we're talking today, we're talking about numbers and laws currently under the current tax system. That can change at any time. In between, fiscal 20, calendar year 2018 was the first year of the new tax bracket, which completely changed taxes prior to that. And then this plan that's currently in place is actually only in place through 2024, at which point it goes back to the old tax system unless there's a new one. So these numbers change constantly. And for that reason, it's always important to not just understand how your money's working, but like also building yourself some sort of cushion so that when this changes, you're not turned upside down. You want to be able to still afford your lifestyle. And it's important to understand your taxes and know that, this might change, but you want to be in a good spot anyway. So I'll start off with the tax brackets. And I think an important thing that Jess pointed out that I think a lot of people don't realize is the brackets represent what percentage of tax you pay on that certain income. So just looking at married filers here, up until 19,400, there is only a 10% rate. Then going over that, it increases to 12%. But what's important here is you only pay the 12% on the piece above 19,400. It's not suddenly your entire income is subject to 12%. It's a scale essentially. Like each dollar you earn falls into one of these categories and it gets paid a certain tax on that amount. So a lot of people, they get scared. They say, oh no, I made $80,000. Now I'm gonna have a higher tax rate. In this case, you only have a higher tax rate on $1,000 because only, $1,000 was over the 79,000. So it doesn't completely change all of your money. It really it's an incremental tax on those dollars. So it's a little confusing, but it's hard to look at this and say, oh no, my tax rate's 35%. That's not actually your effective tax rate. Really, your effective tax rate is a mix of all of these numbers. And that's an important number you want to understand from your tax accountant. You want to understand it while you're working, and as you're retiring, as you're working, you want to say, okay, what's my tax rate now? And then it's a fair question to ask, what will my tax rate be down the road? Assuming I take out this much money, you want to try and optimize when you take what kind of money. And I'm going to talk about which types of money are taxable versus not taxable. But the point here is just there's a strategy to it. And I think a lot of people, while you're working, maybe you don't need to see an accountant regularly because you can figure out on TurboTax and your situation's pretty easy, which is definitely true. While you're working, your situation may be very simple and not require a lot of strategy. But as you're getting close to retirement, it becomes a lot more important to figure out when you'll take which types of income so that you're benefiting yourself from a tax point of view, as well as just like a lifestyle point of view, like what can you afford when you retire. So there's definitely a strategy to it, and it's important to talk to your accountant and understand how you can benefit there. And the one other thing I'll say there is to the extent that you can learn your own taxes and understand a little bit more about your taxes, you definitely benefit from knowing that. I know it's very easy to just drop off your pack of papers to your accountant and not really ask any questions, but what I've had happen to a lot of clients is they get audited and they can't speak to their own tax returns. They don't know where this money came from. There can be certain things that you can take a risk on your tax return that maybe you don't understand enough to refute it. And when you're audited, your accountant is responsible to an extent, but you're also responsible as an individual. You're supposed to understand, the majority of what's going to your taxes and how they're being prepared. So you want to make sure that don't be afraid to ask your accountant, where did that number come from? Or, what can I do to change that number? Like, it's an important thing to understand, because what you don't want to happen is for you to get to retirement and you go under audit and be unable to talk to your taxes. You would hate for, to retire and then realize you owe a large tax bill as a result of some risks that were maybe taken earlier. You definitely want to do your best to understand that.
Yeah, the education is key, like Megan said. And one of our goals, one of our missions in the club is to build up different types of buckets of money for retirement so that it's not all going to get taxed to you. A lot of times we're told save into a 401k, a 403b, a pension, and you put all that money in there and you're like, wow, I have $1 million. But the $1 million isn't really worth $1 million because 30%, 40%, some amount is going to be taxed.
Right.
So $1 million could really be $600,000, $700,000 when you look at the after-tax money.
Yes.
So, and that's what we're going to talk about towards the end of this is setting up different buckets. So we want to be as tax efficient as possible while we're working, but we kind of forget about the same thing in retirement, how to be tax efficient too. And let's say somebody decides to work with you, Amanda, they're going to redo their kitchen. How much does a kitchen cost nowadays, Amanda? I know it's crazy.
So I would say starting at $40,000 if it's a full gut.
Okay, so $40,000, and they go to me, where do I get this money from? If all their money's in an IRA, to get that $40,000, they'll have to take out about $60,000, $70,000 to net out the $40,000. So planning through those big purchases, those big amounts of money, where is it coming from? And how do we do it so that it's not all coming out of the IRA, all getting taxed, pushing you into the higher tax bracket?
Right. And also one of the trickle down effects of that is, while maybe you're living on an IRA and Social Security, if you take out too much from the IRA, that makes your Social Security taxable as well. So it's just, there's a lot of things that you need to plan for.
Ripple effects.
Yes, it absolutely does. It definitely does. So one of the things that Jess just mentioned I wanted to touch on is like, generally, how do you know if your income's been taxed already? So while you're working, something that's an important thing to understand is, are you putting away money pre-tax or post-tax? So generally, when you're putting away money into a 401k or 403b, that money is all pre-tax, meaning as a worker, you're not paying tax on it. But as soon as you take that money out in retirement, it's subject to regular income tax. However, alternatively, there are certain types of IRAs, such as a Roth or your traditional savings account, for example, where when you're putting your money into those, you're paying the tax on that money now, so that when you take it out later, it's tax-free. So it's an important thing to understand the balance of those two, to understand what pieces, where should you draw down when you have the money for taxes and when you don't.
Yes. And another thing, like you said, Megan, it hits your Social Security, which we'll talk about too.
Yep.
Done this one. But it also, this hits your industry, Teacher, is it affects your Medicare premiums.
Yes.
Yes.
The more the more income you make, the higher you have to pay for Medicare, Part B.
Correct.
And
Correct.
you get looked at every year to see how much income tax did you pay, what bracket were you in, and it will bump you up, and it can bump you up a few $100s a month.
Yeah.
Which again takes away from the fund money for retirement.
Right.
So here, sorry, go ahead, Megan.
That's not just, on Medicare, that happens on a lot of things. Just, obviously the CARES stimulus package, which is currently, on everyone's radar, that is dependent on your income as well. So it's just, there's so many things that your income can drive later down the road that you just want to be, you want to understand how to optimize that number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so here's the Social Security income tax. So there are two separate things. Let's start with this one first.
Yep.
The income thresholds. Two separate ways Social Security can hit your money. One are income limits. So if you start taking Social Security before your full retirement age, which is different for everybody depending on the year and month they're born, they can reduce your benefit by half if you earn more than $17,000. Okay. In the year you hit your full retirement age, they'll reduce it by a third if you earn over $45,000. Okay. So that's looking at if you have wages, if you take money out of an IRA. Okay. If you have dividend income, bond interest, any type of that type of income, they will reduce it by a third. Now you don't lose those benefits forever. They will, once you hit full retirement age, once you hit that month, they'll bump it up a little bit slowly. So you'll slowly recap that money. So one thing we talk about, Lynette's already retired. She's one of the lucky ones. But the other club women aren't retired yet. And a lot of them are thinking about, when do I take Social Security? And am I going to go back to work after I retire? Will I do some consulting? Will I do something low key, less stressful? So when they aren't sure, it's really important to wait to take Social Security until they are sure, because you get hit with this. And then it's kind of like, well, what was the point of taking it earlier? It's getting reduced by so much. So usually it's worth it to wait. For Social Security, they let you do one do-over. Okay, so you can change your mind, but you have to pay back everything they've paid out. And that could be a lot of money.
Hard to do.
And hard to do. Okay. So it is important to understand how Social Security gets affected by all these other components. And everyone's strategy is going to be different. That's why I hate the articles where everyone should take it at 62. Everyone should wait till 70. It's so different based on your income, your available funds besides Social Security, if you're going to be working, your health, if you're married, if you're single, all those. Now, Megan, you can talk us through. So then you get taxed too.
Yes. Social Security can get taxed. That is something that I think a lot of people, that is a misconception for a lot of people to think that any Social Security income is federally tax-free, which is not the case. It is dependent on your income, your total income. So for Social Security, this doesn't necessarily mean that if you make more than $32,000 only on Social Security, it will be taxed, but it's also your other incomes as well. So for example, if you're relying on dividends from an investment account, things like that, like 1 year that might make your Social Security tax-free, and then the next year it could make your income completely taxable, because it's dependent on all the other sources of income here. So I think a lot of people end up in a mix of this because they receive Social Security benefits, and the first, $32,000 is tax-free, but then over that they end up owing tax on that. So like I said earlier, this is really a strategy here to keep in mind, like how much do you want to take out in Social Security, and how much should you be kind of tucking away for taxes at the end of the year? Because I think the way you receive Social Security currently, for most people, it's not taxed when they pay it out to you, so that it's just owed at the end of, if you owe a balance at the end of the year because your income exceeded, $32,000 in this case, you'll end up owing a tax on part of that money.
Yeah, and it's so much more painful to owe taxes, right? You're all business owners, so yeah, sometimes we owe money. And it's very painful. And then imagine if you don't have income coming in. Business income, right? You're going to be dipping into your funds to cover that tax liability. And sometimes it makes sense.
Yep.
Like Megan and I working on a client, and they had a big annuity that they were 6% in fees. So 6% on fees on $500,000 is a lot of money. Yeah. $30,000 a year. So they bit the bullet. They paid about taxes of about $30,000 for last year, but then they're not going to have that huge fee going forward. So sometimes it makes sense, but it's understanding the consequences of any of those big decisions. Right? They probably would have been terrified to make that decision by themselves.
Right.
Without having somebody to consult with who's done that type of work before.
Yeah. And one thing to keep in mind is that in their case in particular, they kept that money in a liquid form, in cash or investments that they can draw down on. What I think a lot of people don't realize is somebody might cash that in and pay down their house, and then when they get hit with a $40,000 bill the next year, they're completely out of cash at that point. They don't have the money left because they used it to pay down debt, which is not always the best strategy. You shouldn't always just rely on drawing down for your retirement to pay off debt or pay down loans, things like that, because if you end up owing the tax on that later, you won't have that money anymore.
Yes. Yeah, taking money out of retirement funds for debt is not very efficient because you're paying taxes. You could pay a penalty on top of it. So it's not our favorite place to go to for money.
Yes.
And
so one thing, just before we get into this, Jess, I think one thing, this is important, but I think one thing that's important to touch on is a lot of women and people tell me that they, once they retire, they want to open their own business, which is awesome. You've spent your whole life doing a career for somebody else. A lot of people have a passion and they want to chase that, and that is really great. When that happens, it's important to understand the tax implications of that too. Like, that's not just regular old income anymore. When you do that, you have to start tracking all the inflows of money and all the outflows of money and keeping track of every expense so that you can benefit when it comes time to do your taxes. So, there's all kinds of legal things that you have to do to open a business and run it a certain way. And when you're doing that, it's important to also talk to your accountant and say, okay, what do I have to do to make sure that, you know, I'm not paying tax on everything. What can I do to, you know, what kinds of things can I deduct? Things like that. So just like a rule of thumb is keep track of everything if you can when you're running a business. As an individual, it's obviously important to keep track of everything, but you don't get the benefit of taking certain types of expenses. But when you're running a business, you have a lot of flexibility with types of expenses related to your business. So you want to track all of those in any way possible to make sure that you get the benefit of those later on.
Say Amanda and Shisha can speak to that as business owners. And Amanda went through our Money Empire program, so she knows track everything, right?
Yes.
So the last piece, and then we're gonna have Amanda speak, are our buckets of money. And I mean, you kind of fit into this too. So there actually was an article, and I'm going to share this with the club members after, but it was saying how the bucket strategy is the main reason retirees who utilize the bucket strategy are still okay after this waterfall of a pullback in the markets. And it's really based on knowing your money is invested in different ways, in different time horizons, into these different buckets, right? Each bucket has a different purpose. Mm-hmm. So like 1 to 2, 3-year money should be in a bank account so that you know if you're retired right now and the markets had that pullback and your money went down 20%, the first few years you have in a bank account and it's not affected by that pullback at all. So you know you're not going to have to dip into something that's already going down and make it go down even more. Okay. Then you have bucket 2, which is kind of your reserve money, right? So bucket 1 is really your cash flow. Bucket 2 is that 1 to 3-year money that is accessible, it's liquid, there's no penalties, there's no fees to it. You know it's going to be there in the next year or two to live off of. Okay. Then we have that non-retirement money, investment money. This is the type of money we want to go into for that kitchen renovation with Amanda, or to buy your dream retirement home, or for those big expenses like a car. Instead of going into bucket 4, the retirement money, which most of that money is going to be taxed, right? Especially if it's in a traditional 401k, IRA, annuity, that money is going to be taxed. Okay, so this is something that we're going to go into more when we do get our live in-person event. But I wanted to kind of give an overview of it as we were talking about the different types of money and how they're being taxed. They're also going to be invested differently too. Okay. So Amanda, we're going to touch on what we can do with our dream house with this non-retirement money as people move, because I think most of the club members are going to move, whether they stay in New Jersey or out of state, or they go to South Jersey towards the ocean, the beach. They're probably going to move. They're probably going to downsize somehow. And I wanted Amanda to talk on how can we still make it feel like our home, because especially when we're moving to someplace we don't know a lot of people, we kind of lose our support system. We can feel very vulnerable, and we don't want to be in a place of vulnerability when we're retired at all, because unfortunately the people who get scammed the most with money are the elders who feel vulnerable and really out of their comfort zone and don't have a lot of help and support. So the more we can feel at home and secure when we get to our house, the better we are, the better off we are. All right, Amanda?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a great point about downsizing and moving away from your family. My parents are actually considering retiring, and they're making their plan now, and they're thinking of retiring to Delaware. So I just had a similar conversation with them just last weekend. So when it comes to moving, and whether you're retiring or just in general, you have to make your house feel like home. And now during this epidemic, it is so important to have a safe haven and feel comfortable in your space. And home is more than just a shelter. At the end of the day, it's also a vessel of memories, and it's rejuvenates how we feel. When you feel good in your home, I always say that carries out into the rest of your life, and how you feel. And yeah, so I'm gonna just dive into just a few ways that you can make your house feel like home. And number one is to be intentional. So the items that you are putting into your home should mean something or make you feel good. I think when we own our home, I think we talked about it briefly before, Jessica, is that we tend to build up a lot of things and collect, and over time we get piles of things, and or we might have inherited furniture or things from our family members that maybe were special to them, but they're really not as special to us. But we feel that guilt to kind of hold on to it. So that could bring up negative feelings because you feel that you need to hold it because it was a gift or you inherited that item. So when you're moving into your new home, whether you're downsizing, bring the items that really mean something to you. So being intentional is number one. Next is adding color. So you should definitely decorate with your favorite colors, because chances are if you love seeing it, then you're going to love coming home to it too. And I'm not going to dive into the whole design psychology behind color, but just briefly, citrus colors are very energizing. Blues and cool tones are very calming, and warm colors will make a space feel more welcoming. Depends on the shade and tonality, of course. Mm-hmm. Next, I would say wall decor. So when I say wall decor, I kind of group in artwork, also photos, and anything else that is going to be going on the wall. This is a great way to add personality to your space. If you don't have a lot of windows, you can add landscape artwork to bring the sense of the indoors inside. I mean, the outdoors in. Sorry, end of day for me.
We feel like we're all in that boat.
And like I said, it's a great way to add personality and showcase your interests and your hobbies and the things that mean something to you. Aside from home being our shelter, I get so many requests that I want my house to feel homey. Well, if you look at my portfolio, all the projects look very different, and the description that people have requested is I want my house to feel homey or cozy, but everything is interpreted differently based on the client, because home could reference the house we grew up in and we built our memories in, or the house that we lived in the longest, or it could be something else. It could be just your favorite place. Like, I love the beach and I feel the most home when I'm actually sitting on the sand. So how can we bring that feeling in our new space? So aside from being intentional and adding wall decor and color, you could also play with texture and scents, adding candles, aromatherapy. Also, lighting is huge. So ceiling lights can be very bright if you don't have them on dimmers. And if the light is very jarring, it could strain our eyes and you're not going to want to relax in that space. So make sure you have lighting at all different levels, whether that be table lamps and ceiling lights, chandeliers on dimmers, and floor lamps. I always try to have lighting on every single layer, and I always add candles because I absolutely adore them, and I think everyone looks good with a little warm glow on their face. So
Sure.
And let's see, of course, adding pattern. It's another great way to add personality to your space, and reminders of your favorite place or the place that you felt the most at home. So whether that's photos of your travels or let me just go off the beach example because I think that's the easiest to explain. So since I feel the most at home by the beach, then I have, if you can see in the back, I have an abstract painting of the ocean. And every time I see that, when I walk in my living room, it just makes me smile. And then I also have, I don't know if you can see them behind me, but I have like a teal blue throw pillow and different things that make me feel like I'm at the beach, which I usually have like ocean scented candles in the summer. And that's just a few ways that I try to bring home into my home.
It's a great idea. I started using scents. Both Megan and Amanda are on our Wine and Wealth Wednesday series on our Pink Book Summit. And you talked about scents, and I had all these sprays at work that people gifted me, and I never use them. But now when I walk in, so it doesn't smell like an office building. It smells
Yeah, I always use candles or essential oils.
Mm-hmm.
So in my office, I always have something citrus, usually like orange or even mint. It's very energizing. So I need to stay focused when I'm working. So that really helps. And I use lavender when I'm trying to go to sleep. My brain cannot shut off. So I'm always using scent throughout the day.
I've been coating my daughter in lavender lotion, thinking it will help with her 2-year-old meltdown. So just laughs at me.
Not working.
Put this on in. But I didn't even think about the lighting, and we've been bringing our playrooms in our basement, and it's that bright fluorescent light. And my 4-month-old son, I think he hates it because of the light. Whenever he walks in, and he's like, and he can't get comfortable, and he definitely won't go to sleep down there. And I think it's the light.
The fluorescent lighting is so jarring to our eyes, and it's hard to relax in that type of environment. And if you think of commercial spaces, you'll see the fluorescent lighting, and it could feel very stark, or I don't know, you don't want to feel like you're in a medical office or like the hospital, especially now. So lighting is very, very important.
Yeah, thank you. And I like using your favorite colors and not being scared to use them. You probably will like them on the walls.
Yes.
Or
please don't use gray anymore, please.
What'd you say?
Please, no more gray. I can't do any more gray rooms.
My whole house is gray.
Mine too.
I have this is our one gray-green room.
I go on so many paint consultations, and everyone's like, I think we should do a nice shade of gray. I'm like, let's do something else.
Okay, but, keep that in mind.
Color is so important to our mood, and I don't think people realize that until after they painted their rooms all gray. Mm-hmm. And now that we're stuck in our homes for, I don't know, very long periods of time until this thing is over, it makes the room feel really gloomy. So you can still have a neutral wall without being gray, and just infusing color in small ways. Like I said, my throw pillows behind me, and blankets, and artwork, and there's so many ways to just infuse little pops, and it's a great way to just get started if you're afraid to, paint your walls right away.
Yeah, but even just a fresh coat of paint makes such a difference.
Yes. Right. And it's an inexpensive way to transform an entire space.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Amanda.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right, now we have Chitra. So our next topic in our club is health and long-term care. So we thought it'd be fun to have Chitra come on and talk about living a healthy lifestyle, since tonight is about lifestyle living and retirement. And we'll kind of go into what we have planned for the next time we have our health and long-term care. Hopefully it'll be an in-person event, but we really just don't know anymore. But we do have something to kind of keep the theme of tonight going forward. So I know it's a huge mission for me for everyone to be healthy in retirement, because I know health takes our retirement money, right? Our doctor's visits, our drugs, long-term care, nursing homes, those can be 10, 12, $15,000 a month. So it takes money away from us there, but it also takes our retirement days, our precious retirement days. And there's so many of the women who have been in the club or in the club, they were so focused on their career, they're so focused on their career that they're stressed, they're exhausted, it's taken a mental toll on them. And I'm sure everyone can attest to it. When it's taken a mental toll on us, it affects our physical health too in different ways. Whether we're too tired to work out, we're having back aches, neck, hip issues, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all those different things. So the stress from the career, the pressure we put on ourselves, it finds ways to act out and kind of call attention to it. So I know I want people to be able to plan out their dream retirement trip and be able to go on it and not be scared. What happens if my knee hurts me or my hip or my back goes out? And I've seen that happen. I have one woman, she went on trips with her father, and every trip they went 3 years in a row they wanted to hit all the national parks. Every time there would be a park or two in, and they'd have to go home because he was having issues with his health. And they just felt so deflated after each one, and it broke my heart every time I would hear from her. She was in our first club, and she's like, oh, we didn't make it again. We had to drive all the way back. And I know that weighs on people, so that's why we always bring a health fitness coach into our club, because it's such a big piece of our retirement plan is our health. Okay. So teacher, do you want to talk about how you got started? You have an amazing journey, and how you help other women too who are in your shoes, have been in your shoes.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Jessica. This is so amazing what you're doing for these women. I mean, I don't know any other financial advisor that does something like this. And I think it's amazing that, women can think about the whole picture and not just, finances, because in the end, everything affects our finances. So a little bit about me. My name is Chitra Rushlani. I am a weight loss and body transformation coach. This wasn't something I ever planned on getting into, but I lost 80 pounds about 5 years ago, 5.5, 6, almost 6 years now. And it changed my life. I had struggled with weight all my life, and it was something that I just could not get rid of. And it was just, every time I lost the weight, I would try all these diets. I would try going to the gym, and every single time I would gain it back with interest. So it was frustrating. It was, each time I call it like the roller coaster ride that I was on all my life, because I didn't know better. But I finally found a coach that guided me and taught me the importance of not just fitness and nutrition, but also the mindset. So my business is called Fit Warrior Chitra, and I'm all about that warrior mindset. And I think that's like the number one thing you need to work on before you work on anything else. So I help my clients on a day-to-day basis. I do one-on-one personal training, and I also coach them on nutrition. And of course, that mindset piece goes into everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured I would kind of tie this in today with our finances, since we're talking about money. And I was doing some research on that, and I found this article from the New York Times that talks about if we were to exercise every single day, we can save about $2,500 a year in healthcare costs, which is a decent enough incentive to start with. And this is if you just walk 30 minutes a day. So imagine if you were to actually do more, you could save so much more, right? And like you said, it's all about the lifestyle and how we want to live in our retirement. So I kind of made a little bit of a list of some of the benefits that we have, right? And I think we want to be physically feeling good, emotionally, and obviously have good health and our finances, everything in order when we retire, right? And I have had the privilege of seeing in my gym a lot of people who are in their 70s and 80s, and they are rocking it. I mean, they are showing up every day, and I look at them as such a great source of inspiration, because I'm like, that's how I want to be when I'm 70 and 80 and 90. I want to show up to the gym every day.
Yeah.
I want to be, you know, looking younger, much younger than I am. I want to, you know, save my money. I want to be in the best mental health so that I can make more money. So just, you know, breaking it down, like looking at physical benefits. When you do some sort of strength training, and I'm a big proponent of strength training. So any one of your people, if they're not into strength training, I highly, highly recommend that you start lifting weights. And you don't have to lift heavy, massive weights or become a bodybuilder. But even if you use your own body weight and use your own body's resistance, that is one of the number one anti-aging secrets. Tony Robbins says that. He says resistance training is the number one anti-aging secret of the world that nobody talks about. We can talk about all the creams and lotions and all that fancy stuff, but if you can, you know, include strength training in your routine, that will be the number one benefit towards anti-aging. The other thing is a lot of healthcare costs in older age comes from people either falling or having fractures because, you know, they're losing their balance and their coordination. Again, another benefit of strength training is you improve your balance, you improve your coordination, and you improve your overall strength. So your bones are better protected when your muscles are stronger. So it's a good thing for all of us to kind of, you know, wherever we are in our, you know, age or stage, it's good to start working on that strength training. Even if you start once or twice a week, even if it's a half-hour session, it's going to pay off big time.
Can I just
yeah.
You made such a good point with the strength training and the bones being stronger and less likely to need surgeries or to fall and need a hip or knee. And it's not necessarily the surgery that's a big deal. It's the recovery after and being taken out of your routine, your lifestyle, and being what we're all doing right now, right? Stuck at home. And that takes a big toll on our mental health. And I've seen women who have gone through that hip surgery, stroke, you know, all those things. They had to take a pause on their life. And mentally, they started to go very quickly. So the healthier we are, the more we can prevent that.
Absolutely.
Helps us with things like dementia down the road, too. And the cost of it, the impact of it with our family, becoming a burden on people. So that is so important.
For sure. And the beauty of it is that all of this can be prevented, right? I mean, when it comes to finances, when it comes to the stock market, like things like that, you can't control a lot of that. Even your job, like, you know, you can't guarantee you'll have it. You can do your best. But your health is that it's the one thing that you have in your hands. You can 100% control it. And you can prevent so many problems from happening, right? So obviously there's injury proofing, you know, benefits of working out. We have, you know, and the best one, aesthetics. We're going to look good if we are, you know, strong and our muscles are tight and toned. Obviously that makes us look a lot younger. And, you know, it just makes us feel good overall, right? So there's the aesthetics part of it, which we can't deny. I mean, it's not the be all and end all, but it can only help us feel good. So I like to mention that because one of the biggest reasons people do work out is to look good.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And then, you know, just some of the mental benefits of working out, you know, just there's studies that show that, you know, just doing a 30 to 60 minute strength training circuit per week can improve your mental clarity big time. It can reduce brain fog, right? Which is a big thing. As you know, even in our, like, you know, even when we're in our 30s and 40s, we feel like we're so like distracted with so many different things. But that process of working out, even if you're doing some cardio and running or walking or jogging, it just releases those endorphins in your brain and it just gives you that mental clarity. Sometimes, like, a lot of my business ideas come right on the treadmill. Like, as soon as I get off that treadmill, I'm like, oh, I should try that. And it's amazing what it can do for your mental sharpness. It's a great mood booster. Again, all those good, happy hormones that exercise releases are just so good for you, you know, just, and it's, you know, I talk about the physical part of it, but nutrition kind of plays a role in that too, right? The more processed food we're having, the more brain fog we have. So it's all ties in together. When you combine good nutrition with workouts and a great mindset. Everything ties in together and you see the benefits much faster. But it's important to make time for ourselves. I mean, that's one of the biggest things, because yes, we want to work hard now and we want to enjoy our life in retirement. But it's like, my husband used to always use the example of a 401k, and that's what's coming to me right now. So he would always say, like, the earlier you invest in it, the more you reap the benefits of it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what health and fitness really, that's what it comes down to, because you can't reach that age and be completely exhausted and have low immunity and then be at risk of catching all kinds of diseases and then say, okay, now I want to undo all of that and then I want to get fit, right? So then you're working that much harder to undo all of that, and some of it you can't undo because your immunity is so shot. I know people who have things like fibromyalgia and all kinds of autoimmune stuff going on because they haven't taken care of themselves. So it's important to give that time to yourself now. So invest in yourself, in your health now, so that you can reap the benefits later.
Because how many of them you push off the big trips, volunteering, spending time with your family because you're so busy working.
Yeah.
And now you have that time. You want to be able to enjoy it and feel good.
Yeah.
And I feel happier when I'm healthy.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah, that piece of birthday cake that I had last night. Yeah, it tasted good in the moment, but then afterwards, like, oh,
yeah.
Why did I do that to myself?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you feel healthier and happier when you start making just a few good choices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of build on each other. Just like with our money, right? We don't go from A to Z. We go A to B, B to C. I had a call with a woman yesterday.
Yeah, and it's that much harder, right? When you're trying to do it later in life, you've already built these bad habits, and they're harder to break. Like, I'm just looking at people now with this whole pandemic. I'm hearing about I just heard today of somebody who drove like 45 minutes to get to their favorite Starbucks because the Starbucks around our towns have shut down. And I'm like, this is the problem, like, because they're so addicted. Like, I have to have Starbucks. Like, I get that you like Starbucks, but if it's not around you, you shouldn't be that dependent on it, right? Or people who can't like shop and go to the malls are like going crazy buying stuff online, but there's no balance, there's no moderation, right? So it's not that you can't have that piece of chocolate cake or whatever you had for your birthday, but the thing is, you're practicing moderation, right? You're not having that every single day. Mm-hmm. So that's what it comes down to. When you build good habits early in life, they're going to stay with you, and it's not going to be that much harder to then undo the damage that you're doing now. So yeah, we all feel invincible when we're young and we're like, oh, I can get away with it. But I know that just when I lost, they say for every 25 pounds you lose, for every pound you put on, you're putting 10 pounds of pressure on your knees.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And so that's like, the more weight you're carrying around, you're putting your knees at risk, and you're putting yourself as a candidate for knee replacement down the road, which is something you can totally avoid, right? I remember when I was heavier, I would climb up the stairs and my knees would creak, and my husband would be like, what is that sound? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. It must be the baseboard or whatever. Yeah. And now I'm like, I tell him, I'm like, no, that was my knees. And just losing 25 pounds, that sound was gone. My knee pain was gone. So it doesn't take a lot. Even if you can drop like 5 to 10% of your body weight, that can have tremendous health benefits. So if you're struggling with weight, then that's something that you want to start with. And I always say start with like small baby steps. Don't try to completely achieve everything together. Because I think most women that I work with come in with that all or nothing approach. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go on a diet and I'm going to make this all happen. And 30 days later, they've lost some weight. They're feeling good. 60 days later, they're like, to hell with this. Just give me the chocolate cake. Give me the pizza. I'm done. I've paid my dues. I've done what I had to. And then they start to gain all of that weight back. Yeah. So that's why it's like the mindset. Once you include the mindset part of it into that practice, it helps to then make sustainable, long-lasting change.
You brought up such a good point with the Starbucks, and we see it now. I was going to call it the divorce attorney earlier today. Not for my own divorce, don't worry. We're putting together a Zoom series to help women who are stuck at home with a spouse that they hate, they want to get divorced from. Imagine how scary that is. But we were talking about how any of our insecurities right now when they're put under stress, under pressure like they are now, like a pressure cookie, they get so much worse. So if you had trouble binge eating before and then you get into a stressful situation like now, you're going to do it so much more, right? Same thing with spending. And that's one of the things we work on with our money, because you hit retirement and you don't have that paycheck coming in anymore, and it is scary as hell.
Yeah.
We're trained all our life that this belief, I need a job, I need a paycheck to put a roof over my head, to put food on my table, right? How many times have you heard that from your parents or from your spouse or yourself? How am I going to, even now, I don't have a paycheck, let's say, you're furloughed, you don't have sales coming in, how am I going to keep my house over my head? So now you're in retirement and there isn't any paycheck anymore. So those fears, those insecurities, if you don't hit those now, we don't work on them now, they're going to get so much worse when you're in a situation like retirement, or a situation like right now when you're stuck at home. And let's say you binge eat and now all of a sudden you're scared that there's going to be no food.
Oh my God.
You're under even more pressure, more stress, and they probably will eat even more.
It's hard. A lot of people are struggling right now. And, you know, when I started reading people's posts and reading what they were writing on social media, it was like, I'm like, I need to do like a workshop. So I did like a whole emotional eating workshop. And, you know, it's crazy how a lot of our eating is emotional. It's not really because we're hungry. If everyone ate when they were hungry, nobody would be struggling with weight. You know, we eat for a multiple of different reasons, and it shows. It's, you know, it's a struggle, and it's a real struggle. So it's hard because, you know, you have so many, when you try to eat clean, there are so many different thoughts and philosophies out there that it can be very confusing, right? So like just today, I did a workshop on, you know, understanding nutrition and how it affects your body. And it's amazing to me, even to this day, with all the knowledge we have and all the information that's online, there is still so much misinformation. Because all these food industries and the companies, the the companies that are trying to, you know, sell you these quick fixes, they're just trying to make a quick buck off of your weakness. And they're not looking for long-term success. They're not looking for long-lasting results, you know, and that's just, breaks my heart, because that's what I went through and I don't want anyone else to go through. And I'm like, this needs to stop.
Yeah,
So,
it's almost worse, right? You have your hopes up, you have the more highs and lows instead of
stable. Yeah, having a stable process and knowing that it's going to work for the long term. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to mention one more thing with the financial that I just read, and it blew my mind. It was like, when you are working out consistently, you grow new brain cells. There's this like BDNF factor that they call brain derived neurotrophic factor that actually grows in your hippocampus. And what that really means is that you're growing new brain cells by working out, which means that you have the capability of becoming more creative, your memory improves, your overall mental functioning and sharpness improves tremendously. And this is all just from, you know, simple things like walking every day, or like lifting weights 2 times a week. And it doesn't have to be a tremendous effort. You don't have to live in the gym. You don't have to move in there, but just like little changes, making them habits. And then it's one of those things, as you age, like you just said, somebody said, people want to start their own business when they retire, right? So you need to have like all your, you know, your brain cells working at their best. And then if you have the capability of growing new brain cells, I think that's just so exciting, you know, to have that capability and then use that to make more money. So, yeah. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I'm happy to answer.
I did read that, yeah, if we aren't moving, our body is starting the decay process. So you need to be moving for that constant regrowth, like you said. I was just thinking, teacher, you and Amanda can set up how to make your home gym feel good enough that you want to be there to exercise.
Yeah, make it inviting.
Yes.
And
the space.
Like the whole century, like the right smell. Like if you work out in the basement, you're probably like, oh, it smells that here. Like,
yeah.
My daughter.
It's funny you said lavender. I was thinking, because my teenage boy now is working out with me in my basement, and I was like, I can't like be here with you at the same time. I love you, but so I went and got like, you know, I found actually in my bathroom under my sink, I found these like lavender plugins, and every time I open the basement door, I'm like, okay, this is good. I can go work out now.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's true. If you work out in
Little
very
things.
depressing surroundings and it
Yeah.
smells and the lighting's weird, you're not going to want to go down there at all.
Yeah,
God.
my home gym was in the basement, and I didn't have a walkout basement with any natural lighting, so it was very sad to work out and stare at the same four walls and bleak.
Yeah.
Like, was not motivating, and I need to be motivated to do anything.
We all do. Yeah. I actually just ordered some posters for my basement because now I'm spending so much more time there. I used to just go down for my cardio and I would go to the gym for my other workouts. But now that I'm in there more often doing all my Zoom workouts, I figured I'd make it a little more attractive.
Yeah. And with all this rain that we're getting, it's so hard to squeeze a workout in outdoors.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I
true.
know.
All right. So one thing that teacher and I spoke about was giving everyone a goal, a mindset goal, a nutrition goal, and a fitness goal. And not next month, but I believe it'll be in June, we'll do our health and long-term care first event. And we're going to do an accountability check-in at that event to see if people are moving forward with their goal. And you are also offering them a check-in call with you in the meantime.
Absolutely. So if anybody's not sure how to make those goals, or, because a lot of times when I tell people to make goals, they make like a laundry list of like, I'm going to do this, 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 this. So I would love to get on a call with you and help you set that goal and maybe come up with a plan of how you're going to stay accountable. I think accountability and support is a big part of this whole process, just like with finances, like with everything else. It helps tremendously when you have someone holding you accountable.
It's huge, yeah. It's the biggest reason people join our community is the accountability. It forces them to think about these things, address them, and to reach out to people like all of you ladies. So we'll include that in the email, next one, how to get a hold of you to do that call, how to set up the goals properly, get them going, and then we'll do the check-in in June.
Yay.
Hopefully in person.
Hopefully outdoors, I know.
We might be 6 feet apart from each other, but we'll get through this. All right, Lynette, do you have any questions? These other women couldn't make it tonight.
So what were the three goals? Fitness, mindset, and what was the other
nutrition.
thing?
Nutrition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eating better, moving more, and staying positive.
Yeah. And since some of the women, they have extra time on their hands right now because whether or not they're not commuting or working as many hours, now's a great time to really think about that. And especially since we're limited with food,
Yeah.
if you are home more, can you eat less processed foods? I'm guilty of that's one of my worst probably things is the processed foods, but it's the easy stuff.
Yeah.
On the go, things you can throw in your bag. But if you're home more, you can take that break from work to actually cut up vegetables and fruit, cook something healthy.
Yeah. I always say just plan your 24 hours ahead of time. Plan your meals 24 hours at least. That will doing that will eliminate a lot of the impulsive eating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do have a free Facebook group. If anybody wants to join, I share recipes in there, tips in there, motivating stuff. If I can share the link with you later.
Yes, I'll reach out to all you ladies and see what you want us to include on the next email out to the club women. So thank everyone for being here tonight. Despite our shutdown, we are still moving forward. You guys were all amazing, and I'll make sure the women have your contact information to get a hold of you because I think it'd be very cool. Obviously, I want them all to work with you guys, but it'd be so cool. Then they get their retirement house, they get to work with Amanda or talk with her how to plan it out. Or with you, Teacher, you, Megan, and our other women. So have
Mine
a
does
good night.
not sound as fun next to theirs, Jess.
What?
Mine does not sound like much fun next to both of what they can offer.
I know.
It's important though.
It is very important. You make it fun though. All right.